Hi, this is Bishop Craig in Lansing, and this is take one for the week of January 10. Peace be with you. Our gospel reading for January 17 is from the first chapter of John's Gospel. It's about Jesus calling the disciples, or beginning to call the disciples, and I am focusing on the word found. Jesus decided to go to Galilee and found Philip. And then Philip goes and finds Nathanael and says, "We have found the one talked about in Moses and the prophets." So we have finding going on. Now quickly, this reading moves to evangelism. We need to go like Philip did and tell people about Jesus, come and see. But I don't want to go there yet. I want to acknowledge that, but I don't want to go there. I want to talk about the fact that Jesus came and found Philip. I say that because I think these days we, people, we need to be found because we are lost. We are lost in shock and uncertainty. At least I am. I am lost in the shock and the uncertainty over the violence and the assault on our nation's capital, on the assault on our institutions, the assault on our democracy that we witnessed on TV last Wednesday. Lost in the violence. And I, at least, and I think many others, are still shocked and lost in the rising death toll caused by COVID. And the fact that things are getting worse rather than getting better. That we have a vaccine, but we don't seem to be able to distribute it. So I believe that we really need to be found as a people and as the world. We need to be found. And so the good news is that Jesus came and is finding us. I'm going back to Christmas, where the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Jesus came to find us, and Jesus will find us. That does not mean that with the blink of an eye, the divisions will be healed, and our nation will be one, and the violence will be over, and we will move forward painlessly. It does not mean that tomorrow we will wake up and COVID will be under control and have gone away, like a miracle because everyone is vaccinated. It does mean that God will find us and God will be with us and things will get better. Of course, we are mindful that that's so far not true for everyone. The people who have died of COVID. This morning on National Public Radio, I heard stories about people who didn't die of COVID. They died of other things like cancer, but they could not get the treatment they needed because of COVID. So we have those folks, those families, and we also have, I'm thinking of the family of the police officer in Washington, D.C. who died, and the five total. So it won't happen magically, but it will happen. And for some of us, we won't be found and restored until the resurrection. But we will be found because Jesus is coming to find us. That's the good news that I hear this week. I want you to know that, as your bishop, it's been my privilege to periodically, but with some regularity, visit our nation's capital and visit our senators and their representatives in their offices and meet their staffs, which the staffers are all really young. And so on their behalf, I really was violated by the images of the Capitol. Having stood in line to go through the metal detectors to get into the Capitol, having my cane on more than one occasion be a challenge to get into the Capitol, I don't know how they got in. So I hope we figure that out. On behalf of the Synod, I reached out to both senators' offices and the representatives that are on the territory of our Synod to communicate our concern for their well-being, them and their staffs, to express gratitude for their public service, to let them know that I'm remembering them in my prayers, and to encourage them to do whatever they need to do to be healthy, whole, and safe. This one transcends politics. And so I invite you to join me in remembering our public officials in your prayers for the rest of this week and as we turn the corner this weekend toward the inauguration. So please. As for me this week, tomorrow I get to visit via Zoom with the Grand Rapids Conference. That'll be on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have staff meeting in the morning, and the Region 6 bishops are meeting via Zoom Wednesday afternoon. On Thursday, either I will be in a Zoom meeting with the Conference of Bishops, or hopefully, Kathy and I will make a quick trip to and from Chicago so that I can see the ophthalmologist and have them continue to check on my right eye and begin to think about my left. So I would ask your prayers for the safety of that trip, for Kathy who gets to drive, for my doctor in Chicago, and for whatever we decide. And then Friday, it's back home. I don't know about you, but I'm in that season of this pandemic where I'm having a hard time staying engaged. I'm not complaining, but the reality is, as I said to somebody last week, the fun part of the job, which for me is being in congregations, preaching and presiding, that's been on hold for a long time now. So I do a lot of conflict management and complaint department stuff from my Zoom and computer in the basement, and so that's getting old. I'd like to have some fun. I'm sure you would too in your work. And so I'm having trouble staying engaged. I kind of admit that. And so I'm spending time reading theology and writing a book on preaching Jesus as a way to do something fun. I keep thinking about when I was taking my candidacy exams for my doctorate at Notre Dame years ago. That's a big undertaking. And the candidacy exams, written and oral exams, were in March. And as Lent approached, as Lent was beginning, the director of graduate studies, who was also a priest and has become a friend, back then asked to see me. And he said to me, Craig, I don't want you to do anything for Lent. I said, what do you mean you want me to do anything for Lent? He said, your exams will be your Lenten discipline. And I said, well, that's my work. I need to give something up or take something on or something. And he laughed and said, Craig, you do a really good job of preaching justification by grace through faith apart from works of law. But you also do a really good job in your life trying to do works righteousness and justify yourself and make yourself righteous during your work. So nothing for you during Lent, no giving up, no taking on, except your candidacy exam work, because you need to learn not only how to preach grace, but how to receive and live by grace. So I did that, and he was right. I needed to learn how not only to preach grace, but to receive and live by grace. I needed to learn to be a bit more gracious with myself. And so what I want to invite us all to do, if we need it, is to be more gracious with ourselves if we're having a hard time trying to stay engaged. Perhaps to be more patient with ourselves. And that also means, like, saying to others, I'm trying really hard to give myself a little more grace. And not in a flippant way, but so people know what's going on, why the email isn't getting read as quickly as somebody else might like, or how come this isn't being done. I'm smiling as Lent, I think, is a month away, and people are trying to figure out how to do Lent as we always have on Zoom. And the question for me is, do we really need to do Lent as we always have? Or can we cut ourselves some slack and maybe do something less ambitious or something a little different? I don't know the answer to that. But I would give us all permission, especially me, to be a little bit more gracious and patient with ourselves if we're having a hard time engaging. So that's what I am thinking about this week. Grateful that Jesus comes to find us and waiting to be found as a nation and as a world, so that we can get more on track to the life and the people and the planet that God would have us be. I'm Craig Satterley. This is Take One. The peace of Christ be with you always. Take care.